Hi everyone, welcome back again to another special edition of Build Your Brand with Goldie Chan. Now today we have a super special guest. We have someone who's going to come up here and talk about podcasting. This is an area that I don't have as much experience in, so I'm super excited to ask Nikki some great questions. But before we get into this really fun interview with Nikki, I want to quickly thank Ecamm for sponsoring this live stream. Ecamm, you are amazing. Both Nikki and I obviously use Ecamm, and we're using Ecamm right now to do this
right now
live stream. In fact, we're going to drop the lower thirds that I've created in Ecamm. Nikki, could you quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. I'm Nikki. I'm a kid from Queens who happens to be really addicted to her phone and loves social media, loves to talk. So hence why I have a podcast. I rock with the number one motivational speaker of the world, Eric Thomas. I work with my man as head of media, and yeah, I just love everything about Ecamm. I love everything about podcasting, and I just like to talk about it. You know what I mean?
So let's get into then the first thing. So tell us a little bit about your podcast and kind of
Yeah.
how did you start that and what's the growth of that?
So, Nikki and Moose, the podcast, is pretty much where we break down the celebrities and influencers that you know, but not from an accolades kind of standpoint. They're the way they do branding, the way they do business, there's blueprints. And so we break it down so even the common person can pretty much learn from these celebrities of like, okay, cool, this person is number one, but how? Like, what was their team? What was some of the steps? How did they act naturally? So we break it down on the podcast. It's really dope. And the reason why I did it is because I was learning about this situation anyways. I study every single day about kind of just how people grow their brands. And so me and Moose had these conversations every day. I'm like, yo, you wanna start, getting on live and talking about it? So actually the podcast started out as a live stream on Facebook on my personal page, right? And it just started getting some traction and started getting an audience of its own that we were like, yo, we should make this into a podcast. We should really grow it to what it needs to be. And ever since then, it's just been crazy.
Crazy. And I love that you're talking about branding, which is also what we do here. And that is such a cool filter, cool way of seeing branding through, because a lot of people, when they think of famous people, they definitely don't always think about how they built their brands. I also write for Forbes, and one of my favorite articles was on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, where I talked about his business empire, because he has like a really cool setup of all these different businesses that he's working in. But speaking of business, let's get down to it. Let's talk about live streaming for podcasters. You have
Yeah.
so many great videos out there. Just for anybody who's watching this, please check out Nikki's videos, how-to videos on thinking about live streaming. But right now, we're going to distill some of that down into the next few minutes. Nikki, can you give some pro tips for people who are maybe even new to podcasting or new to live streaming, new to both, and want to learn how to better do both of those things?
Yeah. So the reason why I really truly love Ecamm, because it's not only from a standpoint of a standalone podcast kind of vibe, but as well as being able to live stream it and serve the community. So how we use it for Nikki and Moose is that we go live every Tuesday on YouTube just for the audience, just for the community, because we drop on Tuesday, right, our podcast. So then we come later on that night to pretty much either give a little quick recap or just a casual conversation to our community, because they'll be like, yo, we love the podcast. Yo, this is the gem that we got. Yo, talk about this. Because the way we have our podcast, it's really about, yo, what happened this week? And Nikki and Moose, can you break it down? And sometimes we do that truly live, right? And what what Ecamm and live stream has allowed us to do is touch to people in a very different way, right? For free for us right now. There you could do the live stream, put it on your Patreon and get a bag for it. I'm so for that too. Was even thinking about it, may still be thinking about it. So that's a way. But when it comes to live streaming, this is a way where you could bring in different guests, right? Right to the live stream, we brought in our friend Carl yesterday, literally. Like, gave him the link, and that's the great thing about it. You can give anybody this link, and they jump on. So it could be if you want to do a Q&A kind of live stream, giving your audience the link to jump on. That's a different way of connecting, right? Bringing in special guests, that's a different way of showing exclusivity. Like, yo, because you were on this live stream, you saw the special guests, you were able to ask them questions, you were able to interact with them and things like that. So from a podcasting standpoint, the live stream is purely for the community, right? Now, we treat the podcast like we are live streaming, right? So it's only one take. Like, we never do the podcast like, all right, boom. All right, so what are we going over today? All right, you ready for this scene? All right, go. Right? No, we've treated it like it is. And so everything is already programmed, from the intro to the videos to, the little lower third. Everything is already programmed because, for one, I'm not trying to edit all that. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to chop and cut it and add it all in. That's too much time. With how Ecamm has laid it out, it makes the workflow so easy. So I can take what it feels to be a live stream, but it's really our podcast, all productioned out. Like, our podcast looks way better than any other branding podcast out there. I'm going to say that off top. I want somebody to say something different. I promise you. I want somebody to say something different. But from a production standpoint, it allows us to already have it done with no editing situation. And then from a live stream standpoint, we keep that same energy. You still get the same type of production from a live stream standpoint. So for podcasts, like, everything's done for you. The audio's already separated. Like,
and I think that I want to stop you right there because you're dropping so many good gems. And like I said, I've watched your videos, so I know all the amazing tips. But one thing that is so important for podcasters is audio. And I think that pointing out that specific thing, that Ecamm really lets you extract that audio, is super clean. You don't have to be recording on multiple devices to get the good audio, or have multiple programs open to get that good audio, which I've seen before with some of my friends. Once again, I'm not a podcaster, but I have friends who podcast, so I've seen that setup, and it is rough sometimes if you are having to open like a billion different things. And I think Ecamm makes it so easy for podcasters because you just have Ecamm open.
Yeah. This is the thing. Like, even though I'm a techie, I try not to buy everything techie, right? I'm very simple with my workflow. So if there's something that could do everything in one spot, so you're telling me I can do video and audio, and all the audio is separated from me, from Moose, from my guests, from the videos, from the sound effects, because I do sound effects. If y'all haven't heard the podcast, y'all hear sound effects, right? And everything is separated, and I can give that to my editor with no problem, because that's one of the biggest things. Like, you want to level it out for it. Okay, let me rewind it.
You want to talk? Let's go through that workflow.
Even though that we believe that video rules the world, and to some people it does, when you get into the podcast world, it's all about the audio experience. It's all about having the right levels and what they can experience when they have their headphones or when they have it on the speakers. So if your levels are crazy, right, they're going to turn it off. So sometimes when we just extract it from a long video, there's no true way to level it out for a true audio experience. So what Ecamm does is like, yeah, we're not gonna have that problem. I'm gonna give you your mic. I'm gonna give you his or her mic. I'm gonna give you the videos. I'm gonna give you any little sound effects, maybe the system audio that you did. I got you. Don't worry about it. Level all that out so when you drop your podcast, it sounds way better than some people who do it off Zoom.
Because we've all definitely run shows where we have had guests maybe who are
Yep.
totally not familiar with being on camera, being on audio. So it is helpful to have just their audio to be
Yeah.
able to edit that, level that, try to clean off as much static or dogs barking or kids crying or dogs barking, kids crying, and
All of it.
construction noises. And I'm thinking about New York.
Don't forget the airplanes.
The
Don't forget the
airplanes,
airplanes.
every single sound literally imaginable. It is nice to be able to have a clean recording of that. So I want to get a little bit more into, we just talked about audio, which I think is obviously the biggest part of podcasting, but I do want to get into how are you thinking visually? Because I know that's not how most people think about podcasts. Most people who are doing podcasts are like, you know what I need? Good lower thirds.
Nah, so for us, visual is everything, right? This for me, I'm an extrovert. So I'm all about the nice, dope stuff that keeps your attention, right? I understand that though this is an audio experience, discovery wise, I can be seen on YouTube. I can be seen on Instagram, Facebook. And so visually, I still have to appeal to you as well. I appeal to you through audio because it sounds great, but I got to look great too. So, how we do it is we make it look different. So, from the second that you see Nikki and Moose, you'll see like a little page rip in the middle, right? With the logos on the side and everything. When the videos come in, you'll get nice little border of Nikki and Moose with the city background and the video. It like we give you a video experience as well as an audio experience because I know there's two different types of audiences. I know there's introverts and I know there's extroverts. I know there's people who love to see video and don't care to listen to the audio. And then I know there's people who listen to the audio because they got stuff to do and don't have time to watch a whole hour podcast, right? So understanding these types of audiences, I put the same type of energy to both. So when you hear it, you don't feel disconnected as if I have to watch the video. And when you see it, right, you feel like you got the full experience. You don't necessarily have to go to the audio one and feel like something got cut out or anything like that. So from a visual standpoint, I know that's how you get discovered. I know that from a podcasting standpoint, it gives extra marketing tools for your podcast. I already know that it makes you stand out compared to other podcasters if you have your visuals right. So for me, visuals are beyond important.
So definitely thinking about having multiple pieces of content. I think that's maybe another way of saying it, because most podcasters are just like, we have just the podcast, right? We have just that audio piece of content. But now what you're talking about is being able to create all these other different pieces and also being able to promote it really effectively on social media because you have these cool pieces that look visually really great, which is so much easier to promote on, say, a platform like Instagram. That is all visual.
Yeah, think about it like this. Like you have to, and I say this formula a lot, you have to give them a sample of your podcast, and that's literally like a video clip. So if we're talking about, and I'll break it down real quick. If we're talking about YouTube, you want to do, if you have an hour podcast, you want to do like 10-minute clips. So give 2 10-minute clips and then drop the full podcast. You could do YouTube shorts, that's 15 to 30 seconds of your podcast. Then people are like, okay, should I invest my time in watching the full joint, right? If we're talking about Instagram and Facebook, now you're taking advantage of reels. Now you're taking advantage of stories, carousels, all different bite-sized video clips that when you watch something over and over again, you're going to be like, yo, what is this? Let me tune in. Where can I get more? You're baiting people. You're giving them taste samples all the time, and they're like, all right, let me buy the meal. Let me go get it. I need this full joint. Hold on. And so that's how I look at the video side. That's how I look at clipping it up, as I need to give you so many different samples that you're like, yo, this is the best one out here. Let me just, every single time I come to this spot, every single time I come to Apple Podcasts, let me go to this podcast.
I
Every
think
single
that's
time I go to
so
YouTube,
so
let
smart.
me go to YouTube.
Yeah, because what you're having is then people don't have to listen to your entire hour or however long your podcast is, because not
Yep,
everyone wants to make that commitment to really like go to Apple Podcasts first,
yep,
take a listen through. Sometimes they'll just magically, I always like to say magically, find you on Twitter, on Instagram,
yes,
on TikTok, on Snapchat, on whatever platform, on YouTube Shorts, wherever you happen to be creating your short form content. I think it's really helpful to have another platform that you live on for your podcast. And that's exactly what you're talking about, which is growing your podcast without just dropping it on Apple Podcasts and hoping it hits.
yep. All day. It's you gotta be your biggest promoter. That's my whole thing. You gotta be your biggest promoter and not put so much uh hope that the platform's gonna promote you. You have to promote yourself.
Absolutely. So, really quickly, let's get into it. What is it that you love about Ecamm?
Oh, it's the workflow. Like I said, it was. I explained it already. I explained it 17 times. I'm cool with it. It's all about making my life easier. Though some people don't connect with this. Like, everybody's a content creator. If you wrote a word on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, you are a content creator. And the biggest thing for content creators is having a system, right? And with Ecamm, it allows me to have a content machine, because not only can I produce a whole show, aka my podcast, not only from a video and an audio standpoint, right? I can then, it's allowed me to be able to monetize my podcast by creating extra content that we call an after show, and taking that audio and allowing Apple Podcasts now to be able to monetize it, right? All done within Ecamm. I can create a live show, a video podcast, and an audio podcast all through Ecamm, and it's just a different feeling when you have a system. It makes you want to continue to show up for your podcast. It makes you want to continue to show up on social media, because all you have to do is turn it on. You have your little logos, your intros, your lower thirds already there in the push of a button, right? And you don't have to worry about, yo, how am I going to edit this? Nah, it's done. You trim it the most because maybe you didn't say anything in the first 3 seconds, and maybe you were scrambling to find the end button, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you have everything from, if you wanted to make it square, it could be square. If you want to make it vertical for stories, reels, YouTube shorts, IGTV, it could be vertical, right? You can share your screen. There's too much that Ecamm allows us to do, not only from a podcasting standpoint, but from a content creator standpoint, right? From a live streaming standpoint. It's changed my whole life through the pandemic and after. Like, I almost don't want to go outside anymore. Like, I'm like, yo, I have this whole virtual world. I'm good.
And I love that you brought up that there's a million different, maybe not a million, but close to a million different ways that you can set up your camera so you can cut your content in different
Yeah.
formats. Because as we all know, platforms now have several different types of content sizes. So even if you go on a platform like Instagram, you might be optimizing for a square, but you also might be optimizing for a vertical video, for IG Reels and IG Stories. So every platform, it's also helpful just to think about where is this going and how should I film it? Because it is very tough to cut, say, something that looks like this into an IG reel later. So being thoughtful about that and doing that beforehand, really thinking through that process is going to help you in the long run. And I love that you just brought up just thinking about creators in general. Yes, I'm so on board with this. Everyone is an amazing creator, and I think we've just actually gone overtime. I want to thank you again, Nikki, for joining us on Build Your Brand. Where can people find, of course, your amazing podcast and any other content that you make?
Yeah, so Nikki and Moose, the podcast, literally just type in Nikki and Moose on all your favorite podcast players. I'm not going to tell you which one. I want you to have that, right? So Nikki and Moose, or you just go nikkiandmoose.com where you can pick it right then and there. And you could follow us at Nikki and Moose everywhere. And you can follow me on Instagram, because that's where I mainly chill at This Is Nikki's, NICKY with an S at the end.
Amazing. So thank you so much again, Nikki. Thank you so much to Ecamm for sponsoring this live stream where we got to talk about cool things like how to grow your podcast using live streams. All right, everyone. I'll catch you on the next Build Your Brand. Bye.